Hello everybody, I can't believe it. For the last time. Yes, the last episode of the story. Episode 24. So let's go back. Let's go back to that storytelling competition. In the large room in the palace. They're all there. Everybody who's ever been anything in the story is there. And there are two giants peering in through the open doors. And the king is about to tell his story. And his brother walks slowly away. And the king says, "Yes, my brother is right. He was my greatest enemy, and now he is my closest friend. Because know this," says the king. "A long, long time ago, my brother walked out of the castle where we lived and never came back. I became king. I married a queen. And one day she walked out of the same castle and never came back. And years later, our daughter, the princess, walked out of the castle and never came back. And sometime after that, everybody else in the castle walked out and never came back. I was on my own," said the king, "and finally I too had to leave that castle. Oh, I had some adventures," he said. "I met these fine gentlemen here," gesturing towards the brigands. "I climbed a mountain of diamond. One night I found myself in a valley. Dark it was, and out of that night sky there came a gigantic owl. It attacked me. I fought it, and it fell and crashed down to earth and became a man. What was I to do?" said the king. "I didn't think. I just picked up that wounded body and I walked down through the valley to a tower. Where two giants were living." "Oh," said the king, "I can tell you, it took quite a bit of persuading to get those giants to let me in. But they're kind souls. And when they saw I was holding a wounded, broken body, they let me in. Didn't do any harm either," says the king, "that I was on very good terms with a population of mice who happened to live in that valley, and I could guarantee they would never come into the tower. But from the moment I stepped inside," he said, "I devoted myself to nursing that wounded man. I set his bones. I fed him. It took a long, long time, even before he could speak. Longer still before he could walk. Day after day I nursed him and cared for him. And then one day," says the king, "he told me who he was. He was my older brother, and he told me the harm that he had done to me and to those who were dearest to me. Oh," says the king, "I was angry for a long time. But I've learnt from my story forgiveness and love and hope. And I knew that he was not the same person that he had once been. And so I forgave him, said the king. Yes, forgiveness, love and hope. I too am not the same person I once was. And it was he, said the king, who had the idea for this competition. And it was those giants over there who brought us all the way. And I hope somebody in this room will have news of my wife and my daughter. I hope so much, said the king, because there's one way you can recognize them. My daughter wore these beautiful embroidered shoes that only my wife could make. Does anybody have any news? And he looked round the audience, and suddenly there was a stirring over where the wooden horse was standing. And the older and the younger women were walking towards the dais. And suddenly the king was watching them and looking at them. And as they walked, the younger of those two women reached inside her pockets and pulled out two beautiful embroidered shoes. And in silence, they walked up the steps of the dais and approached the king. And he looked at the shoes and looked at them. And the younger said, "These are my shoes. I wore them on the day that I left the castle. And this is my mother, the queen, your wife." And the king looked at them and recognized them. Oh, such a reunion there was. So many embraces and so many tears. The audience stood up and applauded. And during that applause, there were other reunions. The 11 brigands on one side of the room were reunited with the 12th brigand on the other. Oh, there was such joy. There was the ringing of the storyteller's bell. Things that had been broken apart had finally come together again. But then there was a sound. Yow! And everybody stopped and stared towards the entrance. Because there was the black cat standing on its hind legs. And next to it was the little mouse standing on its hind legs. And behind them, peering in through the doors, were the two big faces of the giants. And the cat said, "Excuse me, I have not told my story yet." And the cat looked at everybody with its sleepy green eyes. And it said, "Know this, I come from a realm of magic." And the little mouse said, "Yes, and know this, so do I." And the cat said, "And know this, it is a realm lost in mist on the edge of your world." And the mouse said, "Yes, in mist on the edge of your world." And the cat said, "And know this, we bring the magic to your world. And now we are taking it back." "Yes," said the mouse, "taking it back. But," says the cat, "do not forget the lessons you have learned." "Yes," said the mouse, "lessons you have learned. And if you can find us," says the cat, "we will always be there." "Always be there," says the mouse. And at that, whoosh, the cat vanished, whoosh, and the mouse vanished, whoosh, and the giants vanished. And in the silence, the king, the queen, and the princess looked at one another and hurried down the steps and hurried through the audience, through those open doors, and everybody hurried after them. The 12 brigands came, the peasant, the 3 little old ladies, the whole audience, the storyteller. I came because I was in that audience. You came because you were in that audience. We all walked outside. But the magic had stopped. And looking over the battlements of the city, the marsh was already encroaching on the desert, watering it. Green shoots were beginning to appear. And looking far into the distance, there was a mountain gleaming, but no longer made of glass. It was glistening, topped with snow. And further still beyond that, everybody knew that there was a city, empty, waiting for them to return and to start their lives all over again. And the storyteller rang his bell for the last time and said, I wish you well. Remember your stories. Remember what you have learnt. May you live by your truth. May you live by your story. And then the storyteller also whoosh, vanished. And so my story ends, and I too will shortly vanish. May you too live by your truth and by your story. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.